Lost in the Arizona darkness, where the night envelops truth sublime. No searchlight cuts the velvet black, no rescue comes in time. She become the hush between the Joshua trees, the cold that settles after the heat dies. One more lost song on the windswept plain, under endless unforgiving skies.
Good morning, everybody. And can I say, happy Father's Day. My family celebrated Father's Day last weekend. So for those of you that are on the clock properly, happy Father's Day to you. Good morning, criminal sociology. Great to see you. If you saw me this morning, you would see dark bags, circles under my eyes for going through the hidden true crime Richard Allen content. I'm going to do a series because it was, I struggled with what I heard. So thank you, criminal sociology, for sort of directing me to that content. And I'm getting, we're going to do that, but it's probably going to be a little later in the week. But wow, the liberties that were taken, right? Some serious liberties for everything, for serious liberties for Richard Allen himself, his history, his background, serious liberties taken with the daughter of Richard Allen, serious liberties taken with the facts, the evidence collected by the police or not collected by the police, serious liberties taken with tourism in Delphi, Indiana, serious liberties taken with Greek mythology, and even Disney-esque parallels. It's a lot going on, criminal sociology. That was so inaccurate, correct? It's just so we're going to do that. And thank you. I am so grateful that you steered me in that direction, and I'm working on it. Okay. Look, every time I do like a true crime story, I get a lot of people unsubscribe. And I understand the origins of that. I know where that's coming from because I did take issue with Trisha. I did take issue with trying to put Christina Mack in prison for 25 years. There are very specific circumstances that I felt like the behavior of the creators was beyond the pale. What was done to Kresha is just unforgivable. The way that Colby Ryan or Kay and Larry Woodcock, he was targeted, literally targeted outside of the courtroom. Those were moments where I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed to have a YouTube channel that I did talk about, I guess you could say, true crime topics, right? And it doesn't matter how I cover the story. There are people that simply don't believe that true crime should be I guess, a genre for social media, for YouTube videos and journalism and that sort of thing. And so I've been giving a lot of thought to it because I think that I these this thumbnail that you're looking at, if you notice, it's these magazines like True Detective, Real Detective. Now, I chose these covers specifically for the one on the left with the lady in the green shirt, the red Marilyn Monroe dress, the woman draped like the you know lady draped over the piano looking thing, and then the guy with the mask on. I chose those specifically because I actually remember my mama having these magazines. Absolutely criminal sociology. It's what's happened with him is just heartbreaking. Um, oh, I'll have to go see that golden hair. Thank you for that. I didn't know that he had done that. Thank you. So I chose these magazines for this thumbnail because my mama had a drawer in her bedroom that was just stacks and stacks of these magazines and like actual little books talking about Bonnie and Clyde. The area that I grew up in is the area where Bonnie and Clyde were running around, doing their dirty deeds. They also were sort of like Robin Hood types of people that that doesn't really get talked about in the modern era, but they did a lot of giving money to the very, very poor. And their reign of evil was during the Great Depression. And so there were a lot of people that wanted to help them. There was a lot of people that were protecting them, giving them a place to hide, giving them a place to stay. And so, in fact, the store where they were killed is a permanent fixture in my mind, driving past it all the time, sometimes every day. Like during the summer, I'd go with my papa. He would go around check wells and stuff, and so I would ride with him, and we'd go right past the little store where Bonnie and Clyde were killed. So this idea of crime as a public interest, it's been around forever. My the magazine True, I think it's called True Detective Mysteries. It actually launched in 1924. Yeah, that's 100 years of true crime put out for public consumption. Now, stay with me because the this video isn't about how great how great true crime is, and people should change their mind on whether they approve or they disapprove. This is a study that was put out in Psychology Today, trying to get a handle on why it is true crime is so interesting to people. Why are people so kind of just obsessed with criminals and the crimes that they commit? Um, and there's a lot of these studies out there. It's not just Psychology Today. Back in the 70s, um, that was the time in which the FBI began to send profilers into the prisons of America, and Canada, to start figuring out how to profile certain people. Are there certain people who have criminal inclinations? Do crimes happen as spur of the moment, just maybe stress overload? So even the FBI early on was trying to understand the part of human nature that goes off the rails. The reality is, at any given time, the majority of us are good, decent, moral, ethical people. That's the reality. Most people walking the streets are going to be like me and you. We're all just living the same kind of lives. We're trying to enjoy and play with our kids. We're trying to take care of our parents. We're trying to have a good career, have enough money to pay the rent or mortgage, and still have a little money left over to go on summer vacation, right? But when you look at the history, the coverage of true crime. True Detective Mysteries launched in 1924 by publisher Bernard Macfadden. It's kind of slated as the first true crime magazine. There are literally in my mama's drawer where she kept all of her true crime stuff, literature. I bet there were 30 books. There were both nonfiction books as well as like mystery fiction, right? Same thing with movies that were fictional, but the topic was a crime was committed. Then in 1941, that was when the big True Detective began to be published. And True Detective was published from 1941 until 1995. 2 million copies a month sold during its peak. When was its peak? 1990, 1995, the era of the serial killer? No. The True Detective magazines peaked in the 1960s. So 2 million copies per month. That's a whole lot of interest. That's a lot of interest in the topic of when human nature, when the human being glitches, when something goes wrong with that normal pro-social brain, the brain that says treat others well, be kind and helpful to small children and little animals, make your world a better place than you left it. That's the majority of people. But what happens when we get a glitch? When that human being that really and truly, from all intent purposes, is a good, decent human being, what happens when they glitch? They go off the rails, and then murder and mayhem results, right? The idea of stories, printed stories about murder or evil people, it even goes back to like the 16th and 17th century, where you had pamphlets that were printed warning of, Jack the Ripper or other unnamed killers, people that were hurting others, and they wanted the little communities to be aware of times when they needed not to trust everybody, times where they needed to be on alert and looking out for, the bad and the ugly, if you will. There were songs that were written that would talk about executions of murderers or sensational crimes. Then in the 18th and 19th centuries, the newspapers came in to wide circulation, the little pamphlets being kind of the first version of newspapers. Then the communities grew the written text, the regular publications saying, here's what's going on in our community. We're having farmer's market. Oh, yeah. And we've had, 3 people disappear in the past month. So during the 18th and 19th century, cheap newspapers began to come out. People like Charles Dickens began to write about hangings and people that had been in prison. In the 19th century, there were very, very famous trials that began to be printed and talked about in the newspapers. And then we enter the 20th century, and we get the explosion of true detective mysteries, Real Detective, Bonnie and Clyde, and the rest is history. So as the 20th century moved forward, now we have the television, right? So we've gone from word of mouth to little written pamphlets in the 17th century to newspapers in the 19th century to magazines in the 20th century. And then television comes on the scene, and true crime becomes a permanent fixture in the 70s and the 80s for true crime stories. Truman Capote's In Cold Blood, written in 1966, one of the most famous true crime books ever written. And some consider it like a landmark for the beginning of the modern true crime genre. Now, here we are, 2026. We have court TV, we have law and crime, we have 24 hours a day crime on YouTube. Basically, true crime has appealed to the largest majority of the general public for at least 500 years that we know of. Mass printed documents that are tied to elements of crime or punishment, trials, that kind of thing. So this is not new. What's happening on true crime, I'm sorry, on YouTube, it's not new. It's been around forever. And it has been hugely popular forever. It's such a popular genre, even going back 100 years ago when my mama was a young woman. She couldn't wait to get her weekly or monthly subscription of True Detective. So these stories of crime, punishment, human darkness, the profiling that's been done, now the FBI stories, the fictional fictional trial weekly series that come out on television. It's all the same thing. And in my opinion, it's people, good people, normal people, just trying to understand what happens when the human being glitches. One of the recent stories that I've talked about was Taylor Parker. She glitched. Something happened to her. If you look back in her history, her childhood, the changes she went through, and ultimately the culmination of her free life, it looked to be tied to attachment problems, severe neglect, perhaps drug use, exposure to early adult themes in her life. That she had been so neglected, she was so hungry for a family, to be a part of something that would identify her, that she never matured past that stage. She could never get past that idea, I won't be someone until I am a family member. And she just tried to recreate it, and it was such a pathological need. It was something that was so severely lacking for her that she glitched. She made some terrible decisions and choices. So the ethics for how true crime is now being covered, I guess, in today's world, how do we do it? How do we do it in a way that isn't exploitative? Isn't exploitative of the victims' families, right? That's sensitive to people and what they've experienced personally. I've in the past 24 hours, at the suggestion of sociology, I've been going over Hidden True Crimes coverage of Richard Allen, their analysis of Richard Allen. And there were things about it that made me very uncomfortable. It's not the coverage of the true crime that's the problem. It's not the coverage. It's not the discussion of what went wrong. It's not the discussion of the person that's supposed to be acting like all the rest of us, normal and kind and pro-social. The interesting part is, what did they do that was unusual? At what point did they go off the rails? At what point did their brain sort of glitch? Right? And I think the ethics that's tied up in this now, I think what is a fairly common topic of conversation on YouTube, should we, I guess that's the first question, should we be talking about these stories where people are hurt and harmed by criminals? Like, should that even be a genre? And what's wrong with it if we do cover it? There are themes in the tensions that arise between each side of the story. These tensions take on a flavor of, is this information public? Is it of public interest? Or is it being presented as real information? When I say real information, I mean factual information. What is the entertainment value? Because the group of people that is really against true crime as a genre, they don't want it being reported on at all. They look at this and they say, excuse me, the worst experiences that a family that goes through, there should be no entertainment value in it at all. Should be zero entertainment value, right? Like, there's not really an argument there against FBI detectives going into the prison and interviewing Ted Bundy in order to learn about what makes these serial killers tick. Nobody's opposed to that. Everybody's fine with that. But we're very, very, very opposed to making a YouTube video telling the story of Ted Bundy and going to the neighborhoods where Ted Bundy did the dirty deeds and filming and recording those areas. People don't seem to want there to be any public information out there about these crimes. Now, I'm not saying all people, because without a doubt, the bigger group is the group through history. It's the group back in the 50s that was buying 2 million copies a month of True Crime Detective magazine. The bigger group is, 3 million, 10 million people want to know about Ted Bundy. There's not 10 million uh, detectives out there, y'all. So the minority are those who say there should be no one should be talking about this publicly. No information should be put out there, right? Those are the two bigger groups. And then there's that middle of the road group, I think. There's that middle of the road group that goes, well, hold on. We're being disingenuous if we say that we're not curious about the Ted Bundys, the Brian Kobergers of the world. That's not true. People are interested in why anytime a human being goes out of character, we get interested in that. If an animal acts in a way that is atypical, we get interested in that. Nobody is interested in the story of a pit bull going off the rails and attacking someone. It's a fairly common phenomenon that is so common that a lot of homeowners can't get homeowner insurance because they have a Doberman or because they have a pit bull or a Rottweiler, right? There's certain classes of dogs that rightly or wrongly have a reputation as being more aggressive, more independent. But a little poodle, now I shouldn't use a poodle because poodles are aggressive by nature. Let's say a little Australian Shepherd, okay? Because Australian Shepherds they have zero aggression. If an Australian Shepherd goes off the rails and begins attacking the family and ending their lives, that's going to be in every newspaper in America because it is unexpected. It's not the norm. So it's the same thing with people. When people act in a way that isn't humane, it's a story. When people do things that are hard to understand because they're not what is expected, people get interested. So the middle ground is how do we cover true crime or talk about true crime? Is there a YouTube channel that can do that in a way that everyone is comfortable? I don't know, but it is something that I'm thinking about and exploring. So here's one of the big complaints for the group that says this should have zero entertainment value. This should not be a genre. Consent and privacy. Do creators need permission from victims' families? Very uncomfortable, right? It's already icky. Before I even start talking about it, it's like, ooh, Jules, do you have to say it that way? Because it's so uncomfortable. But isn't that one of the big issues that people are uncomfortable with? That the families that are experiencing the loss of their loved ones, the families sometimes get woven into the story of the criminal. It's been my personal opinion that the victims have nothing to do with the crimes that happened to them. I know. Detectives say there's victimology that you have to learn. If you want to fully understand a crime, you need to learn about the victim. I defer to the professional detectives for that. And I don't think there should be my opinion, I don't think there should be any discussion about the victims because it gets dangerously close to, are we blaming the victim for what happened to them? Now, as a detective, I would say you definitely want to understand about things that we may or may not do that would open us up to becoming a victim, right? We would want to know that because we want to teach our children to be safe, to have awareness of their surroundings, to notice when there's a human being who's glitched and they're not normal. Brian Koberger gave plenty of warning signs that he was not like the rest of us. You know what I mean? So yes, we need to study the victims in terms of how were they chosen, but or my field, are there certain personality styles that tend to attract violent people? It's another really important area. I'm not really going to talk about it. I may do that at work. I may consider personalities in the case of child abuse. I may consider personalities in terms of which parents cross the lines and which parents never cross those lines. But I'm not going to make a YouTube video about it. We're not going to do a whole YouTube channel on anything with the victims. My opinion is they're entitled to their privacy 100%. So this question of, do creators need permission from victims' families? It is a very powerful question that feels really uncomfortable. There are a lot of YouTube videos that I would be willing to bet the majority of YouTube true crime channels are talking about cases or crimes, and yes, sometimes victims, and they never ask for consent. And for me, one of the most uncomfortable moments that I felt with Hidden True Crime covering the murders of Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, the people that they murdered, was when Lauren walked up to Larry Woodcock as he sat outside and wept. And I'm not going to get into why. It was related to the trial. It was related to some mistakes by the prosecution. He was in a moment of crisis. It was such a tender, sensitive moment. People should have been protecting him, keeping reporters away from him. Like, knock him upside the head and say, get the hell out of here with your camera. Do not be recording that man. Leave him alone. He is absolutely entitled to his privacy, right? What'd Lauren do? She just skipped her little happy ass over there, sat down on the bench, and began reporting to the world that she was sitting with Larry Woodcock and he was weeping and crying. And then she said the words that made me want to bop her in the nose. She said, here's what we're dealing with. And I wanted to shake her. Lauren, we are not dealing with anything, honey. That was as private, intimate of a moment as anything imaginable. What he was going through in that moment was between him and God. He should have been given ultimate privacy. People should have turned their backs and not watched him. Now, these are my opinions. You guys have your opinions. I respect that. My opinion is one tiny little opinion in a sea, an ocean of opinions. But that's the way I see it. For me, the victims are entitled to privacy, the highest level of privacy. And I think they should be protecting. We have a responsibility to stop those people like Lauren who don't see the lines. They don't see that boundary of decency, right? It's indecent what Trisha has done with Beth B and Helen and the widower who gave her $50,000 and what she did to Sue Pruitt. We should speak out against that. That's not coverage of true crime. That is a crime. But my complaints against Trisha are not because she's a true crime channel, although I use that term loosely, because most of the time she doesn't even know the crime. She's just reading what someone else sent to her. Or her new thing is she's following the Brittany J model where she's just playing Brian Ensign. She's doing a video where she says, "Hi, everybody. Hello, Mad Hatters." And then she turns on Brian Ensign for the next 30 minutes. I don't know how she monetizes that. She does. But I didn't speak out against that. That wasn't the issue. I didn't even speak out against her when she came for me about 5 years ago. I said she can do a reaction to me or if she wants to. I don't care. But when you start actively trying to steal an inheritance that is not yours, when you are going into a woman's room who has recently passed away and you are stealing her phone and her purse and you are putting the phone in a Faraday bag, guess what, y'all? That isn't coverage of true crime. That's not a true crime creator. That's a criminal. So me speaking out on these people, it's not lashing out at the greater genre of true crime. It's lashing out on the ethics, the humanity, the decency. So it's my opinion, little teeny tiny me, it's my opinion that victims are hands off. You leave it alone. There's nothing to be gained from discussion about the victim. Did they ask for it? That's a lot of the BS that you saw in the coverage of Bryan Kohberger. People began saying, "Oh, well, Xana partied too much," or look how pretty Kaylee was. Stop. None of that has anything to do with a psychopath. None of it has anything to do with the guy who appeared to model his behavior down to the actual geographical location after Ted Bundy. So there's nothing to be gained to tear the victims apart for the FBI, for real forensic psychologists. Okay, sure, we need to learn about them to try to keep us and the rest of our population safe. But for YouTube, the interest is not the victim. The interest is what made this human being glitch. So, first question, which I think is the biggest question from the group of people that believe that true crime should not be a YouTube genre, consent and privacy. Do creators need to get permission to cover the crime from the victims' families? There have been many situations where the families of victims discover the content after the fact. They wake up to their nightmare, like the case of Shanann Watts, Chris Watts. The parents, the uncle, they wake up to, oh my God, our family's been annihilated by this young man that we trusted wholeheartedly. We have to heal. We have to deal with this, right? So they're in shock. What's going on? They're trying to make their way to Colorado to do what they've got to do. And then they find out this is a topic of conversation on YouTube. And it's not just a topic of conversation where people are talking about what Chris did, what our son-in-law did. Now they're talking about our daughter. They're saying that our daughter was mentally ill and had Munchausen by proxy. They're saying that our child was annoying and they probably would have killed her too. So they can forgive Chris for what he did. Look, some of the reporting that went on got really weird, y'all. Got really bad and really weird. So they were probably the first that I personally am aware of. They're the first family that turned to lawyers and police to try to shut down the YouTube discussions on what happened to Shanann and their grandchildren. And there were a lot of people got really angry at them because they were trying so desperately to shut down the weird reporting about Shanann, things that were just not even true at all. So the big question is, do we discuss the victims? Do we get permission from the victims' families? And then, that leads to the big question number 2, exploitation versus awareness. Is it inherently wrong to make money off of tragedy? Right? Some people say, well, the newspapers reported about Chris Watts, and you've got big true crime creators that talked about Chris Watts. So if they can all make money, then why is it wrong for a little small time YouTube channel to make money off of the story of Chris Watts? News coverage should be fair game. Well, I can tell you straight up what the problem is. Because never once, not ever, on NBC News did anybody say Shanann Ruchek had Munchausen by proxy and she was so annoying that Chris had the right to kill her. I know that didn't happen on NBC News or Law and Crime or Court TV, 60 Minutes, 2020. So it's the responsibility of the creator, right? It's how is the content being presented? Is it sensitive to the families? Is it sensitive to the victims? I personally was aghast when we saw John Matthias read an R report of a minor. He literally got the police report and read the report, and it had the most sensitive details, like about how it happened and what happened. The assault on the young lady. Actually, it was 2 girls, but this one guy. And I just shook my head in amazement because he's a psychologist, right? And I thought to myself, okay, wait a minute, John, you knew better than to do that. There's so much wrong here. You covering it in this fashion. None of your ethics training kicked in. Like you didn't say to your wife, hey, you know what? I don't think we should be reading the assault of a minor. I don't think we should read the details, the factual police report on our YouTube channel to make money. I don't think we should do that, Lauren. I think there's a lot wrong with that. Number one, it 100% exploits the young girl. Period. We don't have the permission of this teenager to put the facts out from a police report about what happened to her. A police report that is used in a court of law to get a conviction. We don't have a right to this information, much less to be reading it for profit on a YouTube channel. I'm a little worried, John, that you didn't make that connection. I'm a little worried that you didn't pick up on the subtleties of that. I mean, you brag quite a bit during the Richard Allen trial about how this is what I do. I work with sex offenders. This is what I do. I know I'm an expert in this area. Oh, really? You're an expert in this area? And you didn't see a single thing wrong with taking this young teenager's nightmare experience and reading the details of it on your YouTube channel for profit. You didn't see anything wrong with that? I'm aghast. Here's the second part of the way they covered it that I was horrified by. Mystified is a good word. John, if you're not going to kind of pull the reins back on your little racehorse, Lauren, and say, no, this is a bridge too far. There's a line of decency. Boundaries matter, and we don't need to cross this line here. This line of decency is no one is entitled to the details of what happened to this young woman. This police report was collected for the prosecution of a crime. It's not for entertainment at all. So we shouldn't read this. Okay, so since you failed in the really big, obvious one, what about the second line questioning? How about, okay, well, Lauren, I'm not going to do it. And the reason I'm not going to do it, number one, it is ethically and morally repugnant to do. But number two, this is very insensitive coming from a man. For a man to read these details of a young girl's battering, we have a channel with 300,000 subscribers. There are going to be people listening that have themselves been victims of R-ing. And it is too insensitive for a man to present this. So even though I'm against you doing it on ethical and moral grounds, if you just have to do this, it comes better from a woman than from a man, so that we don't traumatize our viewers. If we're not going to consider the victim, at least let's consider the triggers for those people in our audience that have been victimized. You fail that too, John. These are pretty basic for criminology, for forensic psychology. These are pretty basic facts. So to cover the story, you focus on the criminal. You don't put out the blood and gore. You don't describe the details of the horror for the victim. You manage it, like a responsible news person, journalist. This is what happened, and leave out the gory details that are so troublesome for people. There's a young woman, 16 years old. She was assaulted multiple times by her boyfriend and was so badly hurt she needed surgery to reconstruct. Now they're going to let this guy walk because he's some fancy football player. His parents are wealthy. His parents have connections in the community. Talk about the college. Talk about the friendships between the college president and the parents of the artist. That's the story. It's not what you guys did. You stayed away from that, didn't you? You totally stayed away from the fact that who you are in the United States of America, and what kind of money you have determines whether or not you're going to be a criminal or not. You didn't touch that, but you didn't bat an eye exploiting that young woman, triggering the tens of thousands of subscribers that you have that have had that experience themselves. You didn't bat an eye at that. You didn't care about that. So exploitation versus awareness. If the big NBC, ABC, if they're making money off of covering these true crime stories, then it's fair game for YouTube content. But there's a really important consideration that a lot of creators just don't see or care about. And that is, are you being careful? Exactly what is your story? How much real facts and knowledge are you bringing to the table? Are you making a contribution to the greater field of information? Or are you just engaging in murder porn? Are you just using tragedy porn? That's what I think of when I think of Lauren and John. They are using tragedy porn. They're using horror porn. I think, in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why they tend to really go heavy coverage into stories where the victims are children, because we're horrified. The death of innocence, right? So that's big money for them. I'll tell you something else that they do. Is it okay to befriend the victims of these crimes? You befriend them, and then you turn the victims and their families into content. Well, I made a whole couple of videos on this and the ethical violations for dual relationships. Lauren, this question has been argued in the courts for psychologists and medical doctors. Dual relationships are a bridge too far for people that are trained in ethics and morality. We don't do it. We stay very clean in how we manage relationships and friendships. If I have a friend, and if I have a friend who has either they or a family member has been involved in a notable crime, do I get to make that my YouTube content? I can tell you straight up, the answer is 100% absolutely no. No, 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 no. And the courts, the judges of the land agree. Dual relationships, when one person in your life is serving in the capacity of two or more roles, you are on a slippery slope of immorality and unethical decision making. You don't do it. And John Matthias knows that. John Matthias, before he ever got out of his first year in his PhD program, had it drilled into his head, the APA ethics code, most specifically that of dual relations. And you want to know why? Because the number one reason for psychologists to lose their license, dual relationships, exploitation of patients, where they have a patient that then gets transferred into a secondary role in their life. Like you have a patient that you really click with, you really like them, so you make them your friend. You start going out with them on Friday night to dinner. You start going to the bar together, two-stepping on Friday night. That is what gets most psychologists the loss of their license. Don't do it. It's just wrong. If I have a patient and I have a Ferrari that breaks down, and that patient is a Ferrari mechanic expert, I don't get to say to that patient, hey, I got a broken down Ferrari and I can't find a Ferrari expert mechanic to work on it. And how about this? How about you fix my Ferrari and I will provide free therapy? You don't do it. It's an absolute no-go. You don't do it. So the question, exploitation versus awareness. If I read about Lee Mongerson Gilly and I dig into European news and learn about what's going on in Europe where he's concerned, and then I come on my channel and I report about what I've learned in the public domain, that's awareness. That's making it so that you know the story and you didn't have to do all the work to get the story. Exploitation is, oh, Lee Mongerson Gilly is my next door neighbor. Let me tell you what I heard him and his wife screaming about a month before she died. That's exploitation. That's dual relationships. So I think in answering this question about true crime coverage, at the ethics and morality of TrueTube, true crime, is the information, is the creator raising awareness, or is it just put out the raunchiest, dirtiest information and then collect your super chats? I think if one were to consider a code of ethics for true crime, TrueTube creators, I think the number one right at the top of the list is, do no harm to the victims or families. If you start covering a case and a family member comes to you and says, please do not talk about this, please do not cover this story, what happened to my nephew, I think you honor that as an ethical creator. We're seeing this in action right now with Trisha of Web Sleuths of Othram Laboratories. Trisha is so excited to do another 24-hour live stream grifting off the name of JJ and Tylee. I don't know if she's going to talk about Charles or Tammy Daybell, because I think she's like Lauren. I think they're murder porn people, and talking about children gets more money because it's more emotionally triggering for the listeners. So I don't expect we'll hear anything about Charles or Tammy because they're adults. I think it'll be all about JJ and Tylee. And it's, it's the end of the world as we know it. Her annual 24-hour live stream. So the sons of bitches, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, killed people for one reason only: money. They wanted life insurance money so they could go on with their creepy, delusional life. We've got Trisha continuing to make money off of the people that they killed. Is that okay? Does that seem normal? Is that all right? And then the weird, creepy 144 roses at JJ Vallow's memorial. Gross, Lauren. Lauren, you're nasty. You're gross. That was gross. It was insensitive. Wasn't funny, wasn't cute, no double entendre bullshit. It was simply an obscenity. And Trisha's upcoming end of the world for regular normal people, her 24-hour live stream, grifting off of JJ Vallow, and now she's involved his school is an obscenity. And it's an attenuated version of what Lori Vallow herself did. She killed her family members in order to collect on their life insurance. She killed them to bring money into her hands. Why is Trisha doing the 24-hour live stream in the name of JJ Vallow and his school? To put money in her hands. It is the same act that Lori Vallow did in terms of motivation. It's attenuated. There's no violence involved, although I would suspect that if you're Kay and Larry Woodcock, if you're Kresha, if you're the rest of, if you're Colby Ryan, it feels violent. And they have been vocal toward Trisha. Don't do this. Enough is enough, for God's sake. Lauren and John Matthias made $3 million during all the trials. That's enough, Lauren. You could have taken that $3 million, invested it properly, and lived the rest of your life without ever worrying about where your next meal was going to come from. You're greedy and you're obscene. Same thing with Trisha. Who the hell gets $50,000 from one subscriber to pay server fees? Who does that? You're greedy and you're obscene. To report on Trisha of Web Sleuths, Othram Laboratories, to report on that, the 24-hour live stream, grifting off the murders of these kids, not allowing this family to heal and move on, when the family is coming to you and saying, don't do this in the name of JJ. Don't do this. We don't want this. And you thumb your nose at that family member or those family members. You thumb your nose at Colby Ryan, who's grieving the little sister that he loved. He has made it clear he loved Tylee. You don't have a right to do that, Trisha. To cover that, that's true crime, all right. But it's talking about the criminal Trisha of Web Sleuths. It's a fraud to do this 24-hour live stream saying, we're doing it for JJ. We're doing it to honor the victims. Bull effing shit. You're doing it to line your pockets. The same reason that you befriended Beth B, the same reason that you befriended Helen, you found subscribers that had some money. And you began to cultivate them in order to exploit them and take their money. The family has said, we don't want you doing this live stream in the name of JJ and Charles. We don't want this. Don't do it, please. Don't you think we should? Don't you think if you're going to report, if you're going to be part of the true crime community, don't you think we ought to honor when the victim's family speak? Do you think we have an obligation to do that? I do. So, big question number 2, is it inherently wrong to make money from the tragedy? Are you exploiting a situation, or are you bringing new information to the table? Are you taking known information and presenting it in a way that maybe it creates more enlightenment? That's a question. If you were writing an ethics manual for true crime creators, I think the number one principle should be do no additional harm to victims or families. Honor the wishes of the victims and their families. Number one. honor the wishes of the victims and the families. The second principle ought to be provide tangible benefit. If you're going to do this, you need to be bringing something useful to the table. And then another principle would be don't glorify the perpetrator. And I do feel like Lori Vallow was glorified in some circles on YouTube. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, Chris Watts was raised to the level of folk hero. It was obscene. Ted Bundy has absolutely been glorified. So I think when we look at these criminals and we present them in a way that they weren't to blame, that the victim is to blame, you're glorifying the perpetrator, and that is gross and obscene. There are a lot of videos in the true crime genre on YouTube where there's a lot of time that is spent talking about the killer's background, their psychology. They don't really give a lot of depth to the victims. I do think that's a pretty good characterization of the way that I've chosen to talk about some of these stories. And I've explained why I don't put more focus on the victims. I just think they're entitled to privacy. This is not something they ever chose. They never wanted it. And it feels exploitative to me. So the way that I do talk about these things, it's more like, what was the glitch? How can we figure out how what is supposed to be a decent, good, kind human being, what's the glitch that caused them to go off the rails? So I do a lot of talking about background history. That is where I usually do most of my researching and digging up, like with Taylor Parker, finding out about, the connection between when her parents divorced and then suddenly she turned to food in the year after, and the stomach upset and that kind of thing. So I do look for that background, but that's consistent with my training. It's consistent with my profession, what I do. I study people. I know about people. So I do think that some of the documentaries or the fictional retelling of true crime stories, I think they contribute to this glorifying the perpetrator by finding like really handsome guys to play the killer and really beautiful women to play the victim. Right? I don't think we should do that. I think that's wrong. I think we should tell the actual real story and not try to play it up for Hollywood. There are people, and Crusha is one of those, I think. There are people that are against the coverage of true crime, they say, if you're going to do it, you should center on the victim's life, on their humanity, on their legacy, right? I get that, and I respect that 100%. I just think I feel it makes me feel like maybe you run the risk of accidentally getting into factors related to victimology, and then that comes across to the layperson as victim blaming. So I think we have to be careful when we're talking about the victims. I think we should make it a standalone video where you're intentionally talking about that person and all the great things, the life that they had, the positives about them, and not include the nightmare that they lived through, or experienced. Again, I'm only one small opinion. Other people have other opinions and ideas. And since Kresha told me her opinion on the reporting needs to be about the good things about the victims, I'm thinking a lot about it. And many of you have sent me messages, emails and stuff, saying you seem like you pulled back from true crime. Seems like you're not really reporting on true crime like wish you would, because that's how we found you. That's what we want to listen to. But part of the reason why I'm sort of standing back a bit from that is because I'm in this soul searching period. Should we even be doing true crime on YouTube? And that probably wouldn't have even, I don't know. I have a lot of respect for Trisha. I'm sorry. I have a lot of respect for Kresha and her family. And so if I do talk about true crime, I do want it to be in a very ethical and moral way. So I'm just trying to be careful, and I want to honor, my friend and her opinion, but I also am really wary. I would not forgive myself if somehow there was the suggestion that something about a victim somehow, even in the smallest way, made them responsible for what happened to them. I just want to be super careful about that. So I'm kind of in this soul searching period of time. And I'm not even sure I'm really going to return to all true crime content. I don't know yet. But I do think that situations like Trisha from Web Sleuths, Lauren and John, and the manner in which they sometimes cover, not always, but some of the cases they cover, that feels very comfortable because that's well within my training. That's the ethics part of my training, right? So I feel really comfortable pointing out, oh, wait a minute, John, you overstepped that boundary. Lauren, I think that was a misstep. That's comfortable for me right now. Adhering to, number one, do no harm. And number two, are you bringing new information to the table? Are you simply exploiting and trying to get some cash in your pocket? And look, I would like to make some money with my YouTube channel. I'm not a saint. I have bills. I got bills I got to pay. But first and foremost is I don't want to be obscene and gross. That's the last thing in the world that I want to do. I don't want to ever, ever, ever be a part of something that hurts innocent people, ever. And some of you have gotten real confused about who the innocent are. Trisha is not an innocent. She's not reporting on something that I just don't like. It's my opinion. Trisha is poised to take advantage of other people the same way she took advantage of Beth B. and Helen and others, Sue Pruitt. So I don't want to, I never want to be in a position where something that I do hurts an innocent person. I never, ever want to be in that position. So I'm being careful right now, but addressing the actual ethical violations or even moral improprieties for other YouTube creators, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think it's bullying. I think it's a very good question to say, Trisha, why in the world are you interfering with a legal will, let the money go to the intended animal shelter. If Beth B had wanted you to have her estate, she was smart lady, she would have made that happen. So get out of the way, because it's gross. It's criminal in Texas what you're doing. All right. All right. Let's see, what did I put down next? Oh, citizen sleuthing. Man, I got a problem with that. I do. Okay. YouTube is a storytelling platform, isn't it? Is that true? It's a storytelling platform. Are we storytelling? Like, are these stories? Are these the victims? Are they real people? Like, are they being hurt? Right? You kind of have to ask yourself, how far do we go with storytelling when we're talking about somebody's actual real life? So YouTube, the platform, the way it's worked out is you get rewarded as a creator if you have engaging storytelling. And there's no discrimination between telling a fictional story and telling a nonfiction, like reporting the news. Clicks and views gets translated into cash, right? And that's where a lot of people get grossed out by true crime, is why are you making money off of other people's tragedy? And they don't like that parallel for, well, NBC News is making money off of these same exact stories. Why do you approve of that, but you don't approve of YouTube channels? And the answer is because people are not going on NBC, reporting on NBC Nightly News that Shanann Ruchek has Munchausen by proxy. Nobody's reporting that except YouTubers. So we got like this little segment, YouTubers behaving badly. Like when Bullhorn Betty went and got the father of Summer Wells, got him fired from his job. A family that was already in poverty, now YouTubers directly trespassing, engaging in criminal activity themselves, now caused a family to be like with no ability to buy food. The citizen sleuthing is a big problem. Making up your own story, right, John Matthias? Right? John Matthias, you don't get to make up the evidence collected by the police in the case of the murders of Abby and Libby. And yet you did. You did, and you parlayed your fictional nonsense into about 300,000 views. You just make shit up, John. And I'm going to prove that. All right. See, my temper got away from me there. So YouTube rewards good storytelling, and it doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction. So many YouTubers have learned the art of lay out the facts and then fill in with dramatic narration. People that do long form videos like what I do, where I get online and talk and tell my opinion, I think you have to be an ethical person not to rewrite history. I think if you're going to report on true crime, I don't think you have the freedom to rewrite history. I think you have to stick to the facts. And if the facts are exploitative of the family members who are remaining, then I think you make a ethical decision of morality that says, I'm not going to report this because it's going to hurt the victims' family members. I think it's that crossroads where when you're considering a 24-hour live stream that will be monetized, that you have Cash App out there and PayPal links. I think when you're looking at that and saying, I'm going to use this crime spree and bring it into 2026 and make money off of it, I think that you are now inventing information. You're inventing facts that aren't real. You're making it seem like Chad Daybell, Lori, did these things for the July 25th. Yada. No, it's just one fact in a much bigger, insane case. A man eat up with insanity that managed to destroy everyone except his own family members. You want to get in on the act, and you want to take that, July 25th thing, and you want to expand it and make it into a story all by itself. Stop. There's nothing significant about that day. It was the rantings of a crazy man, a man who was delusional. You don't get to take a single solitary fact out of a huge, like 3 or 4 cases, and then take that and in a fictional manner present it to your subscribers in a format that you can make money off of. It's immoral, Trisha. And then when you add in the additional factor that the family is saying, please don't do this yet again, another year, please don't. You're not doing a damn thing for JJ. There's nothing about this farce where you rubbed Pepto-Bismol on your face. There's nothing about this farce that honors the victims of Lori and Chad. It's making a mockery of their deaths. The 144 Roses was a mockery of their deaths. So accuracy, if you are going to speculate, name it. Say, this is speculation on my part. I don't know this to be true, or there is no evidence to show this to be true. This is just my opinion. This is just what I'm thinking might be going on. And even worse, these people that hop on an airplane and fly out to Arizona and sit in front of a woman's house for months for money, no other reason. Those are your citizen sleuths, and they make me embarrassed and ashamed to say, yeah, I cover true crime stories on YouTube. It's embarrassing. So I think we have to stop this on location reporting. As far as I can tell, was started by the likes of Molly Golightly and Bullhorn Betty. And these people did not go into these neighborhoods and represent the true crime community in a way that made us feel good about ourselves. You know what I mean? I wanted to crawl under a rock. I didn't want to be known as being a true crime creator. I was ashamed. So, citizen sleuthers, good God, please stop. Don't go in these victims, the families of the victims. Don't go into their communities. Please stop the insanity. Stop the madness in Arizona. Stop it. Nothing is happening. at Nancy Guthrie's house? Nothing. She was 84 years old. She was bleeding. It is unlikely that she survived. Stop. Stop. It's just gross. And it makes all of us look horrible. And stop, John Matthias, making up your own facts. Stop. It's gross what you did in the prosecution of Richard Allen. It's gross what you did. And I'm going to be bringing that to light. It's just so much that it took more than the 10 hours that I actually was dialed in going through your videos. So much. I don't even know how you got away with it. I don't know how you got away with it. I don't know how come the hidden potatoes, I don't know why they weren't like confused by your reporting. I don't know why they weren't looking at each other going, wait a minute, what's he talking about? That's not true. That's not a fact. Why is he saying that? So we're gonna be talking about that. I've already talked about audience impact, the covering the gore, the shock and awe, couching your stories in a way that are kind of triggery and traumatic. I do call John Matthias out for that specifically because he's a psychologist and he knows better. I know that he knows better. Have no doubt he knows better because he went through the same ethics training that I went through. He knows better. But it sure does get subscribers, doesn't it? 330,000 big ones. Who am I? I'm sitting over here. I can't even break 20,000 subscribers. Well, I'm just over 20. But no, people don't like you when you're not being all, gross and extreme. I'm just not going to do it. I just can't. I can't. Feels nasty. Here's one problem with doing the shock and awe reporting. Your viewers get desensitized. It takes more and more to catch their attention. We're seeing that in the Karen Read case. We're seeing that with the whole Lori Daybell thing, that the story, what Lori and Chad did was so ostentatious. It was so violent and insane and horrifying that a story like the death of Suzanne Morphew, it just seems like you're talking about, what are we going to have for lunch today, honey? It just seems like it lacks any kind of interest. You do get desensitized. For normal people, if we see somebody with their leg cut off, we'll never get over it. We'll have PTSD the rest of our lives. But what if you're an ER doctor? Limbs missing is a normal, commonplace thing for them. And yes, they do get to a point that it doesn't affect them, doesn't bother them. They're just like, oh, we better take care of that so we don't get a bad infection. We'll fit him for a prosthesis in about 3 months. And then they go on to what's for lunch. So using sensationalism, using the gore or using little children so that you get ultimate audience impact, it will desensitize the true crime community. It also can be very triggering, and you can victimize your listeners. You can make anxious distress worse. Or we've also seen unhealthy obsession. People could not walk away from the Chris Watts story. They couldn't let it go, just like they don't seem to be able to, some people, Trisha, don't seem to be able to let go of Lori Vallow in her reign of terror. Unhealthy obsession. Oh, John who? John Ramsey. This is the reason that Trisha doesn't sleep at night, because she is obsessed with John Ramsey. So a big question, I think, for ethical true crime creators, where is the line between the detail for understanding the case versus just gratuitous gore, sensationalism to increase shock? It's really not a hard line to find. It's there. And if you're making decisions based on what's going to get clicks and views, you've crossed the line. All right. So there is an ethics researcher. Her name is Lindsay Sherrill, Sherrill. And she says, if you're questioning your ethics for doing something, what the story you're trying to decide if you want to do for your YouTube channel, but it could also be like a decision you're trying to make in your life with a purchase or something. Okay. Ethical decision making. Why am I interested in this? That's the first question. There's 4 questions. Why am I interested in this? What's the benefit of this story to humanity? I think in the story of Taylor Parker, there is something to be learned there. And that is, most people recoil in horror to abuse, but we take a softer approach to neglect. For example, is it okay? Is it damaging for a 2-month-old baby to be fed with a bottle that is propped up rather than the baby being held in your arms and fed, making eye contact with the baby? That's a true construct that was researched, and children that were not fed with the parent looking at them, holding them while they're feeding them, they have lower IQs. That I'm talking about statistically significant lower IQs. There seems to be something foundational about that eye-to-eye sustained contact when the baby is feeding. Don't prop the bottle, please. You had a baby. Hold it, cuddle it, look at it when it's eating. It's critical to its developmental growth. It's not even a question if it's critical to its developmental growth. We know it is, so much so that babies that are in the nursery in the hospital, they have nurses whose job it is to feed the babies. If it's a smaller hospital and they don't have enough people employed to do that, they have old women like me. They have people that come in and volunteer to feed, like the little babies that are in the NICU and such, to get that contact, to get the eye contact when it's drinking. Their brains just light up. Their brains become very, very, very active when they're feeding and making eye contact compared to propping the bottle. People, your infant baby is not a hamster. You need to hold it and you need to look at it while it's feeding. And I understand too this. Sometimes life is very hectic. You may not always be in a situation that you can hold the baby, make eye contact while you're feeding it. You may need to prop every now and then, but make it an exception and not the rule. One time propping the bottle in a week of feedings, no harm, no foul. Every single day, every feeding, you're propping the bottle, please don't do that. Please, I beg of you, don't do it. All right. Second question, how does this make me feel? like I'm considering reporting on this, what is the feeling that it evokes? Third question, how might those people involved feel? If I report on this, how will the families react? If I go online and say, here are the reasons that I think that Shanann Ruchek had Munchausen by proxy, and then I start trying to list all these things, I'm here to categorically say Shanann did not have Munchausen by proxy. She did not. There is nothing in the public record that says diagnostic criterion for a somatic disorder or Munchausen's or anything like that. No, it's not there. It was made up. It was invented by people that were trying to get clicks and views. Maybe even people that were trying to slander the Ruchek family in a attempt to rehabilitate their own family name. Okay, so that wasn't a real thing, but it did get a lot of clicks and views. It did become quite sensational. So, how might the family feel with your 24-hour live stream, Trisha? And then the fourth question, am I motivated to act? Is there something about this story that I'm going to tell? Is there something about it that I feel makes a contribution, provides something pro-social, gives money back to the community, gives money to victims? I do try, and I do fail, but I do try to incorporate a little bit of education in the videos that I do. I don't want it to be just, I need something because I need some clicks and views. I need some money. I don't want to ever be a part of that. So trying to not, I don't do a story unless I feel like there's something there that aligns with what I know, like my expertise, that I can add to the conversation. And so, that is one of the reasons why ethics has been a big part in the past year, has been a big part of the videos that I make, because we do have ethics guidelines. Ethics is an area of research and education, and people, especially licensed professionals, they are trained in ethics and responsible decision making, and they should conduct themselves to align with their ethics code, even if they're not working. You don't get to equivocate and say, well, I wasn't working, so my ethics code doesn't matter. That's not true. APA has addressed that. Yes, you've been trained in ethics. You know the ethics code. You've done the philosophical exploration related to those ethical principles, and it is a mandate that you conduct yourself in an ethical manner. You don't get to make up facts about Richard Allen because it's convenient. You don't get to do that. Same thing with Charlie Adelson. I don't get to pretend like convict him, the bastard did it. I don't get to act like that if I don't actually see that. I look at the evidence that was presented by Georgia Cappleman, and I'm left with one question. Georgia, why did you use evidence that would convict Wendy? You used it to convict Charlie. Why? Help me understand. And that did not get me any friends in the Markel Adelson community. I can promise you that. Okay. So question is, can true crime be done ethically on YouTube? Well, theoretically, yes, it can. However, it requires intentional effort. You're going to have to be more thoughtful, Trisha and Lauren, about what you're doing. There are some signs. If you follow Sherelle's guidelines, 4 questions, there's some signs that, sort of give you an idea. Yeah, this is probably a more ethical creator versus a creator that's just doing shock and awe. One, is their respectful tone in the discussion of the case? Are they providing to you accurate research? Are they making an additional contribution of some sort? This one is hard for me to say, but I'm going to say it. Victim-focused storytelling and advocacy. And again, I think I've explained why I feel a little uncomfortable with this. I respect those that look at this as it should be a victim's focused story. I pull back a bit because I'm really hypersensitive to victim blaming and victim shaming. So if you're going to do the victim focused reporting or storytelling, please be careful. Please be careful. Please be careful. And if you are going to do victim focused storytelling, you damn well support the family's causes and you damn well support the family's wishes, Trisha. You have to be transparent about where you're getting your information, and you've got to honor the boundaries and limitations. You have to avoid shock and awe, graphic dramatization. You got to avoid perpetrator glorification, Trisha Griffin. You're glorifying Lori and Chad with your 24-hour live stream. You're glorifying Chad Daybell, the Chadster, the Uber Goober Ball. Why in the world would you want to do that? Because the reality is, underneath his goofy external visage is the nastiest, most disgusting monster on the planet. You're glorifying a monster. All right. That, I think, even though I've got a little bit more here that I don't, let's see. Yeah. Okay. That we have run long. Okay. You aren't helping, Trisha. The benefit doesn't outweigh the harm. Excellent comment, Sketty Nona. Thank you. Or just don't do it. That's exactly right. Yep. Let's see. No, normal Idaho mom. I kind of explained this a little bit yesterday. I don't particularly, I never really followed hidden true crime, right? I just found myself always disagreeing with John and didn't particularly like Lauren. So I just, maybe every now and then they would have something I would watch, but I just didn't get my information from those people. I watched Scott Reich, Lawyer, Emily Baker, Lawyer Lee. Those are kind of the channels that I go to. The hidden true crime format that just never got there. Oh, I really like I'm having a brain fart. Tony Bruschi, I watched him a little bit. Brocado, watched him a lot. So, yeah, I just didn't. I have a lot of problems with John and the way that he covers these crimes. I think there's a lot of ethical violations, and it bothers me. So I stay away. Right? I don't really watch much. So I I watched the interview that John did with Stacey Wondra. I believe Stacey Wondra was sitting in a car, if I remember correctly. I was really grossed out by the whole thing because I remember Lauren saying, "Oh, John was asked to do it, to do an evaluation with Stacey Wondra." Bullshit, you big effing liar. You're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar. And see, that's my problem. That's why I can't watch Hidden True Crime. Because when they make these statements that are so blatantly false, there's no way they're true, not 10 million years. There's just no way that anybody would say to John, who is a YouTube creator, right? There's no way they would say, "Oh, John, we need you to come in with your expertise and we need an interview with Stacey Wondra. Maybe you can help us solve the crime of where Monkey Vaughn is." That didn't happen. That's not the way it happened. It's not the way it happens. You actually get a contract. Like you're actually approached with, "We've got this evaluation we need to have done. Do you think you could do it?" And then from that point, then, we make the rules about what we do. But anything we do, we have to be able to support with empirical research on a witness stand. We're going to get cross-examined, right? So they don't just say, "Hey, we need you to collect a little evidence first." There's no way in hell anything that John Matthias would have gained from having a phone conversation with Stacey Wondra would never be admissible in a court of law at all. Hearsay is a problem. His license doesn't grant him power of the world. He doesn't have a PhD in everything, and yet that's the way that he and Lauren act. He knows damn well there has to be a formal request for the evaluation. There's a referral that comes from the judge or for the whichever court is doing the work, and then they tell you where the guy's housed, and when you got to be in court. And then everything from that point on is driven by the psychologist. We make the decision. We call the jail. We go in, do the evaluations, 2, 3, 4 days, however long we do, whatever instruments we decide to do. Then we write the reports. We sign our names, put our number, our license number on the report. And then we better be damn sure to be able to support our work when we're being cross-examined or questioned by a judge. John hasn't had that luck. People pulled. There's very few formal reports out there for public cases, and those reports should be a part of the public domain. So there's very few, and he changed scores on instruments. That right there, ethical violation, APA Code of Ethics, integrity in conducting research. So I just didn't watch much, right? So I moved away from exactly criminal sociology. Anybody that does this work for a living, of course you do a test for malingering. Of course, it's a standard, like an MMPI or MCMI. It's just a standard. That's what you get, a standard IQ. It's just what you do. You get a test for malingering. Apparently not John. Not John. John don't. Weird. It's very strange. Very strange. I've never heard anybody that was a licensed psychologist say to the world, "There's no work out there. I just can't find any work." John, there's so many unfilled contracts out there. What do you mean you can't find any work? It's everywhere. It's weird. It's very weird that he couldn't find any work. It's very weird. It's weird. And I don't know why. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know why he can't find any work. The psychologists I know, they can work 80 hours a week if they want to. There's the need is out there. Whether you're going to do like private work using medical insurance, whether you're going into a hospital doing contract work, man, there's work out there, John. So much work. I don't know. It's weird. It's very weird. He couldn't get into the prisons for interviews or evaluations in COVID. How about Zoom? How about Zoom? What are you saying, John? Are you saying that the prisoners didn't receive medical care? Like they didn't see a doctor? They got sick? What if they broke their arm? They broke their arm. They just had to sit around for 4 months with a broken arm. Is that what happened in your prisons? It's not what happened in our prisons. Hospital? I went to work at the hospital every day throughout COVID. I tested positive for COVID 4 times. I'd take my week off. I'd get my double test. Then I go back to work. COVID did not shut down institutions, John. They have to. The people housed in institutions must receive services. So I don't know about you, but as soon as it became clear that things were about to get real weird, we instantly got our hardware up and running. We made sure that every doctor at the hospital had a computer that could connect through Zoom or other platforms so we could continue to work and see patients. Everyone, medical doctors and psychologists, physical therapists. We didn't get fired. We didn't quit working. And like I said, Scout's honor. I went to work every day in the hospital, direct patient contact every day. They put these thermometers all over the place. Like before you would go in an elevator, or when you walked out of the elevator, there was a thermometer. So you were being tracked all day long. All you had to do was walk past it and it would read your body temperature. So we could catch people. As soon as we thought they were infected, they would immediately report to a person who would then take a good temperature reading and send them home for a week. Get a test. Right? Every single room in the hospital had a disinfectant dispenser. So the policy was whenever you walked into a room, you washed your hands. I'm talking about just using the disinfectant. You washed your hands, squirt, rub it all over your hands, walk in. And then when you would walk out of the room, squirt, wipe your hands, go to the next room. Squirt, wipe your hands. Our hands were red and white. It was terrible. They were sore because it was just constant all day long. There were actually people on each floor whose job it was to watch providers, nurses, doctors go in the room and out of the room to make sure they were following the protocol with the hands. We had bathroom protocols. It was just keep everybody safe, keep everybody healthy, and go do your damn job. But apparently they don't do that in Nevada and Utah. Apparently they're able to just close the prisons down and feed them like they're dogs and cats? I don't know. It's a weird story. I don't know. Hey, old woman of the hills. Good to see you. You know that John was afraid of catching COVID. I wondered that, old woman of the hills. I wondered, did he have an hysterical reaction? Did he see? Oh my God, it's going to be Captain Trips, the Stephen King, The Stand. No, 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 no. I can't go to work. I don't want to die. I don't know, but I mean, here's what I don't know. Let me tell you what I do know to be fact. What I do know to be fact is there's a ton of work if you're a licensed psychologist. The need is unmet. We have so many positions unfilled. I am actually licensed. I have a special extension on my license that I can do therapy with people in 42 different states. I can work interjurisdictional because there's such a high need. There's so many people that live rural, or they live in an area that might be traditionally a little low paying, and so psychologists don't want to go there and live and work. And so we're beginning to pick that slack up for people that have the extended certification or licensing. We're beginning to meet that, pick those patients up and giving them services on a virtual platform. And it's working great. It's working amazing. So I don't know. I don't know how excuse me, John, you live in Las Vegas, right? Or you're in the suburbs of Las Vegas. Do you know how many openings there are for people that work with addictions? That's something that you would know about if you're actually a forensic psychologist. You would have been trained in addictions. And if not, why don't you just go take a couple of classes in addictions of medicine and go work with people with gambling addictions? I don't know. I just couldn't believe. I heard with my own ears he said he couldn't find any work, and I was in shock. I don't know. Don't know. Don't go get me the line. There was a high need during that time, especially, yes, Vicki, people were terrified. Anxiety disorders, depression from isolation was just off the charts. The amount of drug and alcohol use that escalated during this period of time, same thing. What goes along with heightened drug and alcohol use? Yeah, domestic violence. That became another problem that exploded during the lockdowns. Oh, there's work. There's work. No doubt. He could probably have 1,000 patients or more if he got on one of those psychology apps. Look, you join one of those psychology apps, and within 1 week, you can have 20, 30, 40 appointments filled. Absolutely true. I don't know. It's very weird. It's a weird thing. I don't know. All right. And none of my business. It's none of my business. But what is my business is trying to feel good about the content that I make for YouTube. And I have not always felt good about it. I'm embarrassed to say that I make true crime content. That's true. I'm embarrassed of it. Not because of what I've done, not because of my behavior. I'm embarrassed because of the Trishas and the Johns and Laurens and Molly Golightly and Bullhorn Betty, and there's a million others. I don't have to. What about all those people that went out in front of Nancy Guthrie's house? Oh, what's that guy's name? Alex, JLR. Like there's a ton of them. It just looks. It's just bad. It's bad. Slow IQ. It's dirty work. It's dirty work. All right. He likes to talk more than to listen. I think that's true. It's funny to me sometimes he says something and then he looks at Lauren like, "Are you impressed? Are you not entertained?" Right? One of my favorite movies. All right, everybody. Maybe I'll watch Gladiator this afternoon. Yes, Gladiator. I like it. All right. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Please hit the subscribe button. If you have unsubscribed because you're mad at me, I apologize. I would invite you to resubscribe, please. At the very least, hit the thumbs up. I don't have a regular upload schedule. So at least if you subscribe and hit the bell, then you'll know whenever I put something new up. You can tell my content. You may go like 2 weeks where you don't hear from me. Those are the weeks where I'm working my ass off, literally. And then I'll get a little downtime and then boom, I can make content. So I try to make as much as I can. So anyway, if you don't want to subscribe, that's okay too. Y'all are great. I hope that you have a relaxing and wonderful Sunday afternoon. Happy Father's Day to the fathers of the world. And for all of you moms out there that are doing double duty as mom and dad. And for all of you grandpas that are being the best dad that your grandkid could ever have. And that was my dad. My dad was a great second father to his grandchildren. So he's beloved character. And so I'm thinking a lot about him today. And I'm married to a guy who is a great dad, one of the best. So I hope you guys have a great Father's Day. And I think as we leave, we're just going to go out with the world's worst dad, the most awful father that I've known of.
Moselle Estate. Under the dark, plane engines humming, leaving blood on the yard. Alex Murdoch, king of the low country scam. It's the dirty South, where the family tree get shot. Damn. Dirty South. Dirty South, blood on the magnolia leaves. Stole from the claims, brought them to their knees. Ordered the hit on his blood, no remorse. Wife and son in the ground while he popping them by the horse. I could see by the handful, stand them to the pain. Deep South crime boss, playing the deadly game. Heat man did the dirty and flew off in the night. Moselle to the sky, disappearing out of sight. Dirty South, dirty South. Dirt on money, dirty South. Dirty South, dirty South. Alex in the big house, orange on his frame. But back in the day, he was running a different game. Millions from the client slip right in his pocket. Fake checks, fake settlements. He ain't even try to hide it. Head of the ring, low country organized. Law firm front, but the streets know the ties. Bunch of good old boys moving weight through the swamp while he's smiling in court like he one of the cops. But the pressure got heavy, the walls closing in. Wife Maggie starting to question where the money been. Paul running his mouth, boat crash on his hands. Daddy saw the end coming, made other plans. Dirty South, blood on the magnolia leaves. Stole from the clients, brought them to their knees. Ordered the hit on his blood, no remorse. Wife and son in the ground while he popping them by the horse. I can see by the handful, stand them to the pain. Deep South crime boss, playing the deadly game. Hit then did the dirty, then flew off in the night. Moselle to the sky, disappearing out of sight. 2 shots for Maggie, Paul got the spray. Ken dog face pale, red hair, cold as the grave. Hit men in the shadows, boots on the estate. Did the deed clean, then wiped the whole slate. Climbed in that plane under cover of dark. Engines whisper quiet, leaving death in the yard. Oxycontin cowboys, pills by the fistful. Numb to the screams, heart black as the pistol. Now he's sitting in prison, still lying through his teeth. But the feds got the paper trail, can't hide underneath. From the millions he stole to the blood on his hands. Dirty South. legend fell hard in the sand. Brick, family photos still hanging on the wall, but the house is quiet, nobody left a call. Plain lights fade in the Carolina sky, while the oxy got him floating, watching his whole world die. Dirty South, blood on the magnolia leaves. He stole it all, then buried his whole family. Oxy about a handful, crime boss of the low country. Hitman did the dirty, then flew off under dark G. Dirty South, dirty South, dirty South. Murder, you done, bro? Moselle Estate, lights out. The king is in chains, but the South don't forget. Moselle Estate, under the dark, plane engines humming, leaving blood on the yard. Alex Murdaugh, king of the low country scam. It's the dirty South, where the family tree get shot. Damn.
Dirty South.
Dirty South, blood on the magnolia leaves. Stole from the clans, brought them to their knees. Ordered the hit on his blood, no remorse. Wife and son in the ground while he popping them by the horse. I could see by the handful, stand them to the pain. Deep South crime boss, playing the deadly game. Heat man did the dirty and flew off in the night. Moselle to the sky, disappearing out of sight. Dirty South, dirty South.